In one of the labyrinths, an adventurer party is fighting a massive stone monster, and the party members have different roles like attacker, healer, and guardian. The guardian's role is to absorb all enemy attacks and protect his team, but it's a position that isn't valued among powerful adventurers. One day, Rod and Neen are at the Adventurers Guild, and Neen asks him, "Are you thinking about your sister?" He says, "Manisha has a chronic illness, and my only hope is to find the secret treasure of the labyrinth that grants any wish." He adds, "But after what happened yesterday, I feel like I'll never find it, and I want to apologize to the rest of the party too." She replies, "No, you're wrong. You did your job as a guardian and didn't get injured at all. And the quick depletion of your shield was illogical." And he says, "But that didn't just happen yesterday. Lately, every time we enter a labyrinth, my shield gets drained for some reason. I use a lot of potions and become a big burden on you as the team's healer, so I'm really sorry." And she tells him, "Don't say that. We've been able to fight till now because of you, and you always protect me. Not to mention your absorption shield value is 9,999, and that's the highest shield value possible. You're an exceptional guardian. Even if a new member joins the party, hold your head high." Then enters the famous hero Keglos, who has cleared many labyrinths despite his young age, and says to Rod and Neen, "Now that the whole team is here, I'll introduce you to the 2 new members." Neen says, "Wait, the labyrinth doesn't allow more than 6 members per party, and that would make us 7. And Keglos laughs and says, "Don't worry, we'll be 6. Then tells Rod, "From today you're out." Rod asks, "Why?" And Keglos replies, "Because you're a useless guardian, and yesterday you lost an important part of your shield." Neen says, "Rod was blocking the enemy's attacks and still his absorption shield was draining. There must be another reason." But Keglos says, "The reason's obvious. His skills were a hindrance." Neen says, "I admit not all his skills are good, but we still don't know for sure if he's the cause or not." And he replies, "What are you saying? We could have all died, and that's another reason enough to kick him. The 2 new members can fight and dodge enemy attacks better than him. Unlike Rod, who only defends," and tells Rod, "You're out." Everyone around starts whispering, and Rod gets very upset and says, "I understand," and heads for the door. Keglos tells him, "I'm not done yet," and takes his sword, saying, "Yesterday we made no profit because of you. You're just a weak guardian wasting your absorption shield," and laughs mockingly and walks away. Lily tells Rod, "We know you're strong. Good luck." And Neen starts crying, so Rod says, "Sorry, you brought me into this team, but I guess I wasn't strong enough." And she asks, "Is this really goodbye?" And he asks her, "Do you remember when I told you about the village where I live with my sister?" And she asks, "Avanchia, right?" And he says, "Come visit it someday. From now on I'll live there with my sister forever." And she says, "It's a deal." At sunset, he goes to sit alone and thinks about what Keglos said and feels hopeless. Then he hears 3 young adventurers saying they're heading to a town near his with a client, and one of them says, "Are you sure we'll be able to complete this mission?" And his teammate replies, "We ranked up to D rank, so we'll be fine." Rod asks them, "Can I join you on this mission?" And they ask, "What's your adventurer rank?" And he thinks to himself, "My rank is F, the lowest, because I spent all my time in the labyrinths." And before he answers, one of the team says, "I saw him before. He was in the heroes party." And they say, "Please join us." Then the client they're supposed to escort safely arrives, and they set off on their journey. They camp at night, continue in the morning, and defeat the monsters that show up. On a foggy night, Rod senses something approaching and stops them and goes to check, and in front of him appears a small girl who's extremely exhausted. Rod thinks to himself, "I don't sense anyone else, so it's not a trap," and asks her, "Are you okay?" But she's scared of him and doesn't respond, and he tries to calm her down. Then he sees a magic stone on her chest, and suddenly a giant serpent appears. Rod tells the girl, "Hide," and the client says, "That monster's venom is deadly, so don't let it bite you." And they say, "We can't defeat it," and panic. The serpent attacks, and Rod uses the taunt skill, so the serpent changes direction and fires venom at him, which he blocks with his shield and says, "Don't worry, I have a skill that protects me from all status effects like poison. I'll draw its attention, so attack it." But they freeze in fear. The serpent strikes Rod's shield and knocks it away, and he remembers his sister crying and begging him, so he gets up again and says, "I don't have a sword, so you guys need to cut it. Move!" and runs toward the serpent saying, "I promise I'll block all its attacks, so trust me." And he blocks the serpent's strike and says, "Trust in your strength." And they all attack the serpent at once with all their might and defeat it. Then he goes to check on the girl and asks, "Do you have anywhere to go?" And she says, "No." And he asks, "Do you want to come with me?" and offers his hand, saying, "I'm heading to Avanchia." And she asks, "Can I really come with you?" And he says, "Of course, but you can't come dressed like that." So the client gives her new clothes and says to Rod, "If it weren't for you, I'd be dead, so please accept this as my thanks." The girl goes to change her clothes, and the client asks Rod, "Is she an escaped slave?" And Rod thinks to himself, "She's an Anision, and Anisions serve humans as slaves." And he says to the client, "I doubt any slave traders would enter such a dangerous forest. In any case, I'll take care of her." The next day, they reach the client's town, and Rod bids them farewell. The adventurers ask, "Are you in a party now?" And he says, "No." And they ask, "Will you join us?" And he says, "I'm grateful for your offer, but I need to search for the secret treasure." And they ask, "Is that the treasure that grants any wish and can create Anisions?" And one of the members replies, "Honestly, I don't like Anisions. Their expressions are emotionless and they scare me." And Rod notices that the girl seems upset by their words, so he silences them and says, "I can't join your team, I'm sorry." He leaves with the girl and asks her, "What's your name?" And she says, "I don't have a name." So he thinks for a moment and says, "I'll name you Luna." And she gets really happy that she finally has a name. That night they camp and eat together, and Luna senses something between the trees and grabs a knife, and suddenly 3 wolves jump at her and she defeats them. Rod is shocked and thinks to himself, just as I suspected. Luna is an illegally made Anision. She has a will and emotions unlike other Anisions, and she can fight. Normally, illegal Anisions are disposed of. He asks her, "You could have defeated the serpent, right?" And she says, "I'm skilled in magic but have no close combat skills." And he asks, "What are your magic skills?" And she says, "I have the skill magic boost and a support skill called appraisal." So he's surprised and says, "Appraisal is a very rare skill and there was only one person in the kingdom who had it, and I heard he died years ago, which means you're the only one in the world with this skill now." And he asks her, "Can you tell me my skills?" She holds his hand and says, "You have 4 skills. The first is taunt, which lets you draw enemy attention toward you. The second is sound body, which makes you immune to status effects and boosts your recovery and physical toughness. The next is life conversion, which lets you turn the damage you take into power, meaning it's an offensive skill." And he thinks to himself, that's why some skills can't be activated unless you understand them. And Luna continues, "Lastly, there's sacrifice shield, which lets you absorb the damage taken by your teammates." And he realizes the reason his shield was being drained in the last battle was because he was absorbing the damage his teammates received. The next day they arrive at Avanchia and he thinks to himself, I was kicked out of my team because of having skills with unknown effects, but they're actually great skills for protecting my allies. Now I can return to Avanchia with my head held high. He enters the town and meets the deputy captain of the town guard, whose name is Phil, along with the daughter of the best blacksmith in town, named Melina. They get to know Luna and really like her. After that, he goes home and sees his sister Manisha and is overjoyed. She asks, "Who's with you?" And he says, "This is Luna. I met her on my way and she's going through a hard time, so I decided to let her live with us," and Manisha welcomes her. They sit and eat and Manisha says to Luna, "The way you're holding the spoon is strange." So Luna says, "Sorry, I've only used it a few times." And she remembers when she was young and the spoon would fall while she ate, and she says, "I'm sorry, I'll use it properly from now on." And Manisha tells her, "No need to apologize," and teaches her how to hold the spoon and says, "I'll teach you everything you need." And over the course of 3 days, they teach her reading, chopping, and cleaning. On the 3rd day, they're surprised she made lunch. Rod thinks to himself, it tastes just like Manisha's cooking, and she mastered all the basic life skills in a short time, and wonders, do Anisions learn this fast? And Manisha asks Rod, "What do you think about going on a walk with Luna?" And he says, "Good idea, because I want to introduce her to everyone." And Manisha goes to get her some clothes and asks, "Need help putting them on?" But Luna gets nervous and says, "No, I can dress myself." And Rod thinks to himself, she's probably afraid Manisha will see her magic stone. They go out and Rod tells Luna, Avanchia doesn't have an adventurer's guild. It has a blacksmith, a pharmacist, and what makes it special is the orchard nearby. On the way, they meet Mr. Rizzle, Melina's father, and Rod tells him, "My magic sword was taken from me." And he replies, "I'll make you something amazing in no time," and asks, "How about you take Luna to see the beast farm?" Rod takes her to the farm and says, "These wild vegetables are plants that grow with mana and turn into monsters. They're very nutritious." Some kids approach them and greet Rod, and Grandma Gigi yells at them, "Get back to work." Luna remembers when she was young and was forced to work. Rod introduces her to Grandma Gigi and says, she's the town's pharmacist and makes the medicine for Manisha. Luna hides behind Rod, so Gigi says, "She reminds me of Manisha in the past. I wish I could help her more, but my medicines won't help her much." Rod tells her, "You've done more than enough," and says, "She says she's already feeling better thanks to you." Luna feels that she's kind and Gigi tells her, "If you need anything, come visit me anytime. You're all like my children." And Luna is happy and enjoys being with the townspeople. At sunset, Rod tells her, in the countryside, people's relationships and bonds are their form of entertainment, and she says, "They're all kind and I'm glad I came to this lovely town, and I'll really be happy if I can live here forever." She takes his hand and places it on her chest and says, "Do you know what this thing on my chest is?" And he says, "It's a magic stone." And she says, "Right, you might not believe me, but I'm not human. I'm a combat Anision developed in the country of Bronklas. Sorry, I didn't say this earlier. I thought you'd kill me if you knew, but you saved me and it hurts my chest to keep lying to you." And Rod says, "I'm sorry. I knew you were an Anision from the start." And she asks, "Then why did you help me?" And and he says, before we came here, Manisha and I lived in the slums, and I saw in your eyes what I saw in hers back then, and I couldn't leave you. But even when we lived there, we never forgot how to be human. And he asks, what about you? Will you live as a human or as an Anisian? And she says, but I'm an Anisian. Your words aren't realistic. And he says, I've never heard of an Anisian who couldn't be human. I dive into dungeons to cure Manisha's illness, and that's why I'm searching for the secret treasure that may or may not exist. And she thinks to herself, could I wish for that? And says, I want to live as a human. And he says, it's a deal. They return home and Luna tells Manisha, there's something I want to confess. I'm an Anisian, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you before. And Manisha says, I already thought you were different, and asks, will you still be my friend? And Luna hugs her and says, of course. They then go to the town's manor where all the townspeople are helping clean. One of the guards tells Rod, now that we're done cleaning, let's spar like old times. And Rod says, all right, but only after I spar with Phil. They go out to the training yard and Phil says, you want to test your hidden skills in a match, right? And he says, exactly, and I guess I won't have to hold back against the deputy guard captain. And the battle begins with a clash and Rod blocks Phil's strike with his shield and notices her hit is heavy. She attacks again and he pushes her back with the shield, and he thinks to himself while blocking her attacks, Phil's gotten stronger since our last duel. If she lands one of those hits, I'll lose. Luna and Manisha cheer for Rod, so he looks at them, and Phil takes advantage and swings the sword at him, but he dodges quickly. Phil jumps at him with full force and strikes with her sword, and he absorbs the damage and turns it into an attack, draining her absorption shield, and she loses. One of the knights says, doesn't Phil have a shield with 2,500 value? How did she lose with one hit? And Rod says to her, thank you, and she says, glad I could help. And he thinks to himself, until now I focused on defense as a guardian, but from now on, thanks to life conversion, I can take part in offense too. Manisha says to Luna, my brother is amazing compared to me, and she remembers when she was young and crying, hearing people say they abandoned her while she's suffering from a serious illness. They'll raise their son Rod only, and her condition says she won't last long. And Rod appears and hugs her and says, I was looking for you. At night she has a nightmare and wakes up saying to herself, my brother always comes to save me, and she asks herself, but is he happy? Would he live more freely without me? The next day, Rod offers to help Manisha prepare breakfast, but she acts strangely and says, I know how to do it on my own. Luna wakes up and says, I feel embarrassed that I haven't done anything with you yet. And Rod says, don't worry, we help each other. She notices he's holding a newspaper and asks, you both are educated, so who taught you what you know? He says, when we were kids, there was an attempt by nobles to give children in poor districts a better life, and because of that, we were able to attend the Knight Academy. After that, Manisha remembers the past when she was walking through the school hallway and heard kids saying to Rod, you're amazing, you'll definitely become a knight. And Manisha thinks to herself, my brother is an outstanding student and always excels in school, and everyone expects him to become a knight. She hears some girls saying, Rod will probably become an adventurer to treat his sister, and another replies, no way, he's way too talented. And the first says, he can't do what he wants because of his sister. And Manisha feels guilty and thinks, my existence will ruin all my brother's future. In the present, Luna comes in and asks, are you okay? And she says, yeah, I was thinking about the past. Luna tries to comfort her, and Manisha asks, if you knew someone was wasting their life for you and would be better off taking another path, but gave up everything just to live for you, what would you do? And Luna says, I don't know anyone who would go that far for me, but maybe doing that is what makes them happy. And she asks, why don't you try talking to him? And says, Rod saved me even though I'm an illegal Anisian, so I think he sees things differently. Manisha says, I don't know how to act around my brother, and I don't think it's right to rely on him so much, so I try to keep some distance from him as much as I can, and even so, I want to treat him kindly. I'm confused and don't know what to do. And Luna says, be honest with him about your feelings. They go out to Rod, and Manisha thinks to herself, I'm scared he might regret saving me, and asks him, are you happy with your current life? And he says, of course, and she wonders how he can say that. She asks him, why did you save me when everyone else left me? And he says, because you saved me before. When we were little, the kids always called me scary because I was bigger than them, but you were never scared of me, and that always made me happy, and I still think I made the right choice saving you. Manisha cries and says, I'm sorry. I assumed you were sad because of me, and when I thought that, I couldn't connect with you at all. And she hugs him, and Rod thanks Luna. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door, and Rod opens it to find Neen, who says, I'm no longer a member of the heroes party. After you left, we failed to secure the dungeons, so the heroes party was disbanded, and Rod is shocked as she explains. We go back to the past in one of the dungeons, where they were facing a huge monster and everyone was exhausted. Keglos wonders, why can't I deal enough damage? Why did we lose so much of our absorption shields? What changed since last time? He remembers Rod, and more monsters appear, so he uses his skill and thinks in surprise, activating my skill consumes all these shield points, and thinks, Ever since he left, my skills have gotten weaker. He attacks the monster and says, no way I'm wrong. The two new girls say, this floor's level is way above us. Sorry, but this means we're allowing more monsters to spawn because we can't kill them fast enough. And he yells, shut up, and tells Neen, heal us quickly. And she says, what are you saying? He gets angry and says, we can't retreat or fail again. He tries to use his skill again, but his points are gone. The monster attacks him and destroys his absorption shield, and he panics, thinking, the pain doubles without my shield, and the monster hits him again, breaking his back. Keglos cries in fear, saying, I don't want to die, and Lilia carries him and escapes, and they all leave the dungeon. Later, in the hospital, Keglos reads the news in the paper and yells at the two new members, you're useless, and because of you, my reputation is ruined. And Neen says, no, it's not their fault. This time and last time were your fault because you acted recklessly. She asks him, when did you stop training? And says, you've become weak and sick, all because Rod isn't with us. After he left, you finally realized how your skills work, right? Your skill boosts your physical abilities at the cost of a huge amount of your shield. And that time Rod lost his entire shield, you released the maximum amount of your skill. And I'm sure Rod's unknown skill made our shields behave like his. So you made Rod bear the consequences of your skill, and his shield value was 9,999, so that's why you were so strong. Keglos gets angry and yells, no, that was my own power. Losing one guardian shouldn't mess everything up like this. And she says, doesn't matter, I'm leaving your party, and the others leave too. Rod says to Neen, I recently figured out what my skill does, so I'm sorry for what happened. And she says, we're responsible too because we didn't know either, so I'm sorry for everything. Manisha says to her, why don't you stay with us here? And Rod leans closer and whispers to her, I didn't mention this, but Neen is a duke's daughter, a noble, and Neen gets upset and says, don't say that. Then Phil comes in and tells Rod, there's a monster in town, and I've never seen anything like it before, and they go and find the orchard destroyed, and a wolf with a dark aura around it appears. Neen says, I can't see it clearly because of its magic core, and uses purification magic on it, making it more visible. Rod says, looks like its magic core has taken over its mind. One of the knights attacks it from behind, and the monster knocks him away with its tail. They realize it's Field, the guard captain and Phil's father. The monster jumps at them, and Rod uses the taunt skill and says, anyone who can use healing magic, keep casting it on me. The monster attacks, and Rod blocks it with his shield. The knights charge at it, and it knocks them away with a spinning move, and Rod takes the damage instead. Neen and Luna keep healing him, raising his HP again. Rod tells the knights, don't be afraid, attack. My sacrifice shield will transfer your damage to me, and they get pumped and attack the monster without fear. Luna and Neen continue boosting Rod's points as they drop. The wolf tries to flee, and Luna uses earth magic to raise a wall in its path. Rod targets it and thinks, I'll use the 20,000 damage points I took for this strike using life conversion, and slams his shield into the wolf with force, sending it flying a great distance and causing more destruction to the forest than the monster had done. Captain Field thanks him and says, thanks to you, we defeated the monster without any casualties. The next day, Rod looks at the newspaper and says, they didn't write anything about what happened yesterday, and that monster with 2 magic stones. What could it be? After that, Phil summons her knights, Rod, and another adventurer party, and says, I gathered you to eliminate the chameleon Kong that appeared recently. Chameleon Kongs are monsters that are half gorilla, half chameleon, and they live in a region in the far south. It's hard to believe one of them reached Avanchia without being detected, so we need to investigate the cause of its appearance and eliminate it. There's a chance it came from a Demus, so if you find an entrance, report it. Neen notices that Rod has a sword, and he says, it was crafted by a skilled swordsmith and his daughter. The sword is impressive on its own, but it also has the enchantment skill and can use various elements like fire and change the mana of the magic stone. I can use all elements magic, but not strongly, so if I channel fire magic into the stone, it becomes a fire sword. One of the adventurers Phil summoned overhears him and asks, you're F rank, right? That treasure's wasted on you. Rod asks him, you're C rank, right? And he says, yeah, and there's no reason someone from F rank should carry a sword like that. Better go home, old man. Luna gets upset and says to Rod, aren't you going to say something? And he says, calm down. I'd rather he underestimate me than exaggerate. And she says, I don't like seeing anyone mock you. Neen says, see, they belittle you because you refuse to raise your rank, but you're strong enough that a noble like me considers you a knight, the highest rank. The adventurers are shocked and ask, is that true? And she says, yes, and he turned down my offer. And they ask, why? And he says, if I raise my rank, the guild will start summoning me constantly. Suddenly, the chameleon Kong appears and jumps at them, and Phil blocks its strike with difficulty. Rod uses the taunt technique and blocks its punches with his shield. The knights and adventurers seize the opportunity and attack it. Rod thinks thinks to himself, its wide swings and loud roar. If it were human, its behavior would be like a guardian. Unexpectedly, two more monsters appear, and one of the knights says in surprise, so the first one was distracting us, but they're just mindless beasts. Phil feels weak and thinks, we're surrounded and I can't do anything. Rod says to her, as the leader, you transfer your will to them, and I believe in your ability. She gets encouraged and says, form ranks, and Rod provokes the three monsters and stands among them. He blocks the first one's punch, and Luna casts a wind spell while the adventurers attack it. The second monster strikes at Rod, but he blocks it and thinks to himself, if I remember correctly, chameleon Kongs are weak to fire. He charges his sword with fire magic and burns it, and Phil finishes it off. One remains, and it gets furious at Rod and punches him rapidly. Rod takes the hits with his shield, and Luna casts wind shot while Neen pins it down with water magic. Rod lands the finishing blow with the fire sword and cuts it. The adventurer who mocked Rod approaches and says, you must be a monster yourself not to be afraid in that situation. Rod says, as a guardian, I must never retreat. The adventurer replies, I'm sorry for mocking you, and Rod says, no problem. Rank is indeed an indicator of an adventurer's skill. The monsters' bodies vanish, and Rod thinks to himself, they died just like Demas monsters, and Neen spots a Demas entrance. At night, they celebrate, and Phil says, I hope the Demas appearance helps develop the town. Luna asks Manisha, why are they celebrating? And she says, the Demas appearing will make the town prosper. Neen asks Luna, are you enjoying the party? And she says, yes, though Rod doesn't seem happy. Neen says, that's because Demas have flaws and he's surely worried about that. If we don't defeat the Demas monsters, they'll escape like the chameleon Kong did, and if that keeps happening, it'll be a threat to the townspeople. Luna asks, shouldn't they assign adventurers to wipe those monsters out like we did? And Neen says, that causes problems too, because anyone can become an adventurer, even the worst people. Luna asks, so how can adventurers be organized? And Rod answers, with guilds. Guilds are organizations made of multiple parties, and those who join guilds are officially recognized by the state and are responsible for protecting towns like knights. Neen says, even adventurers seek stability, and Rod says, towns can fall into chaos without guilds, and Avanchia especially. Since it has few adventurers without a guild, adventurers would come here and do whatever they want. The next day, Rod walks through the town and sees two people fighting, so he stops them and runs into Neen. On their way, she tells him, it's been a week since the Demas appeared. I didn't expect this number of adventurers to show up. People greet Rod and thank him for his help. Neen tells him, I heard you've been taking on a lot of requests. And he says, just trying to control them won't work. They see people running and shouting, there's a fight. People say, that's Bo, the third member of the Black Dragon Fong, and that's Garly, the third member of the White Tiger Claw. Both are A-rank adventurers, and their fight will cause trouble. Rod steps in, and before they begin, he tells them, your fight is scaring the townspeople. They reply, we're defending our guild's honor here, and Bo says, why don't you settle the matter for us? Choose which guild should operate in this town. Rod replies, we don't need either of you if you're going to cause trouble. One of Bo's followers charges at Rod with a sword, but Rod easily grabs his hand. Neen says, enough wasting time. Unlike Rod, I won't go easy on you. Rod says, this town has its rules, so if you insist on fighting, I'll face you. And they say, we're sorry. Garly tells him, if you're going to join a guild, White Tiger Claw is the best. And Bo says, no, Black Dragon Fong. Rod tells them, I won't join either of you. Enough. They leave, and Neen tells him, didn't expect the guilds would try to recruit you. And he thinks to himself, I used to dream of joining a guild that would be like a family to me. A knight shows up and says to Rod, Sir Field is looking for you. Rod goes to him, and Field tells him, the king gave me two choices for you. The first is for you to create a guild and be its leader. Everyone's been talking about your achievements lately and calling you a young and skilled adventurer. Rod says, I need to cure Manisha, so I can't take on a position like that. Field says, I understand, but this is a request from the townspeople. Instead of bringing in a stranger, we want you to do it, even if you lack experience. Rod thinks to himself, I appreciate this kindness, but if Manisha's illness is ever cured, I want to live a quiet life, and I still want to help the town too. Field tells him, the second option is to destroy Avanchia's Demas. Rod says, that would stop the town's development, and Field says, many Demas have appeared in other countries, and it's hard to handle them all at once. That includes Avanchia's Demas. We can't leave them open. So if you can't lead a guild, join the party exploring the Demas and destroy it. Choose and give me your answer soon. Rod leaves, and on the way, Luna runs to him and says, you have to come home quickly. He returns home and finds Manisha very sick. Grandma Gigi tells him, don't worry, she'll be okay. And Manisha says, you worry too much, and asks, is the town okay? And he says, yes, don't worry. What matters is that you need to rest. He thinks to himself, if I become a guild leader, I won't be able to leave Avanchia for a long time, and I won't be able to enter Demus again, and I don't know if I'll ever find the secret treasure. If I stay in this town, I'll never cure Manisha. He tells Neen and Luna, I'm going to destroy Avanchia's Demus, and I want your help. Neen asks him, are you sure? And says, that decision will cost the town its chance at development. And he replies, if I have to choose between the town and Manisha, I'll choose Manisha. Luna asks, can't you pick someone to lead the guild in your place? And he says, even if that's possible, I can't force anyone into it. Luna tells him, if I can protect the town in your place, I'll do it and help you. And Neen says, I'll help Luna and join your guild. Manisha and Grandma come in, and Manisha says to Rod, I'm no longer someone you need to protect all the time, and I love this town, so if you can protect it, please do. He tells them, I take back what I said. I'll protect both Manisha and the town. And he says to Luna and Neen, I want you to help me. The next day, Rod thinks to himself, I've started forming a guild, but I was summoned by adventurers exploring Avanchia's Demus. I didn't expect members from my old party to be exploring the Demus. He goes to meet Lily and Lilia, who are with a new member named Sugol. Rod is surprised when Sugol opens the tent and finds Keglos inside, badly injured. Neen says, how could you ask to meet Rod after what you did? But Rod stops her and says to Keglos, explain your situation. Keglos says, yesterday we found a conscious guardian monster, and Rod is shocked, thinking to himself, we were never able to speak with any of the guardians we fought before, even when they took human form. Keglos tells him, you can see how far I've come, so you must explore the Demus instead of me. Lily and Lilia tell Rod that letting him continue from where Keglos stopped is his way of apologizing. Keglos asks, you need the secret treasure to cure your sister, right? Rod says, yes, and Keglos replies, I now understand I was using my skill thanks to you, and asks, will you go to the Demus or not? Rod says, I'll do it, and I'll take Lily and the others. Keglos says, I'm sorry for what I did, don't die. And Rod replies, thank you, I promise I'll defeat the monster. They go to the Demus and stand on the magic circle that will teleport them to the first floor. Luna says, I can't believe this huge place was inside the entrance, and there's a sun too. And Rod tells her, don't be fooled by that sun. It doesn't move, and don't let it affect your sense of time. The space inside the Demus is distorted, so things that are impossible outside happen here normally. The magic circle disappears from under them, and Luna asks, will we be able to return? Rod says, yes, and to get out we need a new magic circle. Neen says, don't worry, Lily has a skill called Demus Walker and can teleport us to the floors we visited before. Only 6 people can go with her. Rod says, there's another spell similar to Demus Walker, and Neen shows her and says, this is an emergency escape spell, and Luna tries it and succeeds, amazing them with how fast she learned it. Lily senses 3 chameleon Kong monsters coming toward them. Rod says, Lilia and Sugol at the front, Neen and Lily in the rear for support and healing. Luna, stand where you can protect everyone, and I'll be the group's shield as usual. The first monster attacks Rod, and the second attacks Sugol, who counters with his sword and injures it. Lilia jumps down on it and finishes it. At the same time, a figure with a strange aura watches them and says, you're really strong. Rod and the others move to the next floor, and Lilia tells him, this is where we met the conscious guardian last time. Dinosaur-like monsters appear behind them, and they dodge. Rod thinks, they're faster than the ones we usually fight. Is that because of the guardian? And says, I'll handle these two. Find the magic circle. He provokes the 2 monsters to attack him, and Lilia and Sugol fight them. Neen says, I found the magic circle, and Rod says, we're heading to it now, and the person observing them says, wise choice, come quickly. Neen tells them the next floor is the 10th. Rod says, I appreciate you all understanding my selfish goals, and Lilia tells him, don't worry, it's for your sister. We understand the importance of family. Neen says, don't thank us yet. The real challenge is still ahead. They move to the final floor, and the person who was watching them claps and says, you impressed me? I didn't expect you to make it here. I'm the guardian of this Demus, and my name is Marius. He draws his sword and charges at Rod, who blocks with his shield and thinks, how is he this strong? I feel like my arm's going to explode. Marius says, I'm impressed you blocked that. You were worth the wait. Rod says, I didn't come here to fight. Can we talk instead? But Marius charges up and prepares a very powerful attack. Rod thinks, I let my guard down. He'll kill me, and says, we'll talk later. We have to fight now. Neen casts magic at him, and Marius jumps to dodge it. Lilia jumps behind him with her sword, but he blocks it easily. Sugol clashes with him, and Lilia rushes in again, and he blocks both of them. Marius transforms into a skeletal monster, and Rod thinks, I understood how dangerous he is just from his roar, but I can't retreat because of Manisha. He blocks Marius's strike and thinks, his attacks are incredibly heavy. Lilia uses wind and charges him with force, landing a hit. Sugol tells Rod, let's take turns drawing his attention, and uses the taunt technique. Marius attacks him. Rod thinks, I knew from the start he was absurdly strong, but if I take one more hit, it might kill me, and tells Sugol, don't let him hit you directly, then tells Neen, focus on healing, and tells Sugol, switch. Rod uses the taunt technique, and Lilia hits Marius again but drops to her knees. Luna says, if this keeps up, someone's going to fall. Neen stops her and says, I know it's hard being in the back, unable to do anything but watch, but as long as we do our part, they'll be fine. Luna uses healing magic on Sugol and Rod, and they dodge Marius's attacks. Rod thinks, his movements have slowed. I've lost 30,000 points of my absorption shield. He jumps and says, if I hit him now, but Marius beats him to the punch. Luna saves him in time, and Rod charges his sword with life conversion and strikes him. He thinks, my hit was effective, but I need one more, and Marius forms a giant rock and throws it at them. Rod blocks it, but Lily falls to the ground, and Marius knocks Sugol away, who can't keep fighting. Rod thinks, am I putting them in danger just to achieve my goal? I don't want to risk anyone for my sake, and says, retreat. Neen is surprised and asks, why? And he says, I'm the leader of this party, and I have to make the right call. She asks, will you give up your dream after coming this far? And says, I told you to do what you want. Sugol says, don't give up, please. Rod blocks Marius's strike and says, I want to save Manisha, please. Lily and Lilia fuse into one and become Lilialia. She attacks Marius with fast and strong strikes. Sugol attacks too, and Luna and Neen support them. Sugol's absorption shield breaks, and Rod uses life conversion again and strikes with his shield. Marius raises his sword. Rod thinks, if I take that hit, my absorption shield will break, but I'll receive it and turn it into my sword. And he lands the finishing blow, and Marius is defeated. Marius says to Rod, I had a lot of fun. I doubt I can move again. Do what you want? And Rod is surprised and asks, the fight's over. Marius approaches him and says, yes, and sits down saying, but it won't really end until you kill me. Rod says, I told you, I came here to talk, and asks, do you have the treasure that grants any wish? Marius pulls something from his pocket and asks, you mean this? And says, it's a magic stone that performs miracles. Charge it with mana and make your wish. When you use it, it'll break, so use it wisely. If that's all you want, kill me. Rod says, no, I want to avoid destroying the Demus because there's a nearby town, and extends his hand to Marius and says, I want you to continue ruling this Demus as its guardian. Marius shakes his hand and says, you mean you want us to work together? And says, I love facing strong opponents, so I'd be happy to help. At sunset, Rod returns home and gives the stone to Manisha. She says, I can't take it, use it for yourself. But he says, even if I use it, the result would be the same, so take it. Manisha uses it and wishes for her illness to be cured. Rod asks, how do you feel? And she says, I feel like I have more energy. Before, I'd lose my breath if I moved too much, but now I feel like I could move forever. Rod hugs her and thinks to himself, I've never seen Manisha this well before. If I continue adventuring, I'm sure I can cure her completely one day. I thought she might die someday, but now she's fine, and everything I've done until now wasn't wrong. The next day, the town becomes crowded with adventurers coming for the Demus, and Rod is exhausted from breaking up the fights that keep happening. Bo and Garly appear and ask him, shouldn't you find someone to help manage things? He says, yes, and I have a request for you both regarding that. After that, he goes home and Neen tells him, we need to recruit people to help manage the guild. And he says, yes, Manisha handles the paperwork, but I can't pressure her. I asked Lilia, but she said, sorry, I don't have enough knowledge to teach someone else. Neen asks him, why not try working with other guilds? And says, in our case, you need an equal ally, and you'll need to offer them something in return for an alliance. He replies, all we have is combat strength, and all I told people was that we drove off the Guardian to protect Marius. There's no way they'd accept an alliance. Marius walks in and says to Rod, I want you to manage the Demus. Rod tells him, I told you, I'm busy right now. And Marius says, then I'll become a guild member and stop the fights. Rod says, I'll let you be a member of the guild. Now tell me about managing the Demus. He takes him into the Demus and opens a gate that teleports them to the control room. Marius says, this lake shows everything happening in the Demus, and you can use it to create monsters and change the Demus layout. The number in the top box is your points, and you can use them to create or duplicate monsters. Rod asks him, do the points increase on their own? And Marius replies, you earn points over time by draining the adventurer's shields. Rod asks, so if my absorption shield takes massive damage, will I earn more points? Marius is surprised and says, that's a good idea. Rod says, show me how you operate it, and Marius duplicates an ogre and places it in front of some adventurers. Rod asks, can you duplicate other monsters besides the ogre? And he replies, yes, like imps, axe orcs, chameleon kongs, and fieldosaurs, and if you build trust with the monsters, they might help you. He shows him a wolf in the lake that requires 1 million points to create. Rod is shocked and says, I can't make that. Marius boss tells him, right, and that's where magic tomes come in. They let you create a random monster like a lottery. Rod tries it and gets a small slime and asks, does that mean we can duplicate the slime? And Marius says, yes. Rod says, over time we'll get S-rank monsters. I'll manage the Demus in your place. I won't take full leadership yet, but I'll think about what type of Demus we should build to attract adventurers. So I want you to manage the Demus for a while longer. And Marius says, agreed. At the same time, the assistant to the vice captain of the Black Dragon Fong asks Bo, why would we ally with a weak guild like Avanchia's? Reject his request. And the leader says, no, wait. At the same time, the leader of the White Tiger Claw says to Garly, he seems like an interesting kid. The two great guilds will be holding a party soon. Send him an invitation. That night, Rod gathers the party and says, we received 2 invitations from the 2 biggest guilds in Expelled. As I expected, they rejected the alliance and said they'd consider it if we worked under them. And that's not the only problem. They asked to take Neen into their guild. Neen asks sadly, what will you do? Will you trade me for them? Rod replies, if you want to go, I won't stop you. She says, what if I asked you to stop me no matter what? And he says, then I'll definitely stop you. She says, I don't want to be part of any guild except this one. And he replies, I understand. He says, but I'm set on attending the party. I know it'll be like walking into the enemy's den, but I can't pass up the chance to talk directly with the 2 guild leaders. Marius says, in my lake, I saw another Demus guarded by someone like me. It's called Deuskel, named after the town. Rod is surprised and thinks to himself, if I take control of Deuskel and get another magic stone, I might be able to fully cure Manisha's illness. Neen says, I heard even the great guilds barely reached the 50th floor. Rod replies, but we've improved. We've got Marius's firepower. Luna has been training her magic in her spare time, and Neen is an exceptional healer. We'll form a solid party. The next night, Rod and the party go to the party in Expelled Town. The lights go out, and on stage appear the Black Fong deputy leader, Ike, and the White Tiger Claw leader's assistant, Cynthia. Ike says, tonight we have a special guest, Neen, and the spotlight shines on her, and he says, would you come up on stage? But she hesitates and tells Rod, they're calling me up, but I'm a member of your guild. And he says, you're right, and takes her hand and walks her to the stage. Ike asks Neen, who is that? And Rod stops her from answering and says, I'm Rod, leader of Nin's guild. Ike asks, weren't you the guardian in the hero's party? Didn't the former hero call you useless? He continues, Keglos asked me for advice a few times about forming a party, and I suggested he kick the guardian. You don't need a guardian to take control of a Demus. Rod gets very angry, and Ike says, a guardian's job is to protect his teammates and nothing more, and asks Neen, why not join our guild? Your talent's wasted in a guild like this. Cynthia interrupts and says, we also need a healer to help in the raid on Deuskel. Rod says, I won't let any of you take Neen. Ike asks, weren't you looking for an advisor? But you're trying to trade Neen for an advisor, right? And says, sorry, but Neen is a precious friend, and I won't trade her. Ike asks, then why did you come? And Rod says, to form an alliance. Everyone laughs mockingly and says, isn't that guild small and weak? Ike says, I can't trust a guild led by a guardian, and asks Neen, are you sure you want him? Neen angrily says, of course, he's the strongest guardian in the world. Rod grabs the mic from Cynthia and tells the crowd, we came to take control of Deuskel. We're stronger than anyone here. Laugh if you want, but whoever laughs will regret it, and I'll prove all your expectations wrong. We'll reach the 51st floor that the 2 great guilds couldn't reach. The Black Dragon Fong leader enters and tells Rod, you're an ambitious boy, and I like people like you, and tells Ike, don't underestimate beginners. He says to Rod, I'm Gosh, leader of the Black Dragon Fong, and shakes his hand. Rod thinks to himself, I can tell how strong he is just from his grip. His power is immense. Gosh takes the mic and says, if he can take control of the Demus, I'll consider an alliance, and throws the mic and says, show me something. The White Tiger Claw leader appears. Her name is Little, and says, I'll also consider an alliance with a guild that claims it can take control of a Demus. Show us whether you really can or not. The next day, Lily says to Rod, you impressed me when you expressed your intentions at the party. I'm too weak to say what I want to anyone. He asks her, what are you planning to do? She says, it's not a big goal like yours, but I don't want to be a burden on my sister forever, and I want to learn to rely on myself. When my sister's with me, I never worry about anything. I've always made mistakes since I was little, and she always protected me and could do everything. Same in battle. I can't do anything except support her from behind. Rod asks in surprise, isn't that because you're skilled in magic? She replies, my sister also knows magic, but she fights in close range, and when we fuse, she's the main personality, and I've never fought alone before. Rod tells her, try whatever you want. I'll support you. She gets really happy. After that, he meets Lilia on the rooftop, and she asks him, did I ever tell you anything about us before? He says, you said your parents left you and that you lived together. She replies, the truth is they abused us and we ran away. Our father especially was a monster, so I want to take Lily somewhere she can truly feel happy. He says, you two really love each other? Lily said you're perfect and can do everything. The next day, they go to the Demas and meet Lily and Lilia. Lily says, I just returned from the 49th floor, so I can use Demas Walker to send you there, and they enter the Demas. Lily asks Rod, can I give the orders this time? He thinks to himself, she's really trying to change, and says, sure. Lilia is surprised by what's happening. They enter the first floor, and Marius tells Rod, there are monsters nearby, and Rod replies, you're right. Neen asks him, you can see them too? Marius tells her, that's because you've become the manager of Avanchia's Demas. He tells them, both the left and right paths lead to the same place, but monsters appear in both. If we fight the ones on the left, the right ones will flank us from behind. That's called a pincer move. A venomous lizard appears on their left and a black owl on their right. Rod uses Sacrifice Shield to absorb all the poison, and Lily removes the remaining effects. Rod charges at the lizard with his shield, and the owl launches fast attacks at him. He blocks with the shield and punches it, but it counters with a magic shield. Marius quickly slices it, and another owl attacks Lily, but Lilia slashes it. More monsters appear, and Lily tells Rod, we can beat them, but there's no need to continue the fight. He says, you're right, you all go ahead, I'll distract them. He uses a magic flash stone to blind the monsters, and Lily teleports them. Neen and Luna say to Lily, you're an amazing leader, and Lily is happy while Lilia is surprised her sister has changed. Neen tells Rod, I noticed we can now decide whether or not your sacrifice shield absorbs our damage, but we couldn't do that before. Marius says, I think your skills evolved after fighting me. In any case, your abilities are strange. Some guardians draw attention perfectly. Neen says, you're right. I thought all guardians could do that, but I think Rod is the amazing one. Marius says, I recommend you learn the self-healing skill. Rod asks, there's a skill like that? Marius is surprised and asks, humans don't know that skill? Rod is shocked and asks, what do you mean by humans? Aren't you human? Marius replies, no, I doubt you'll accept this, but I'm a Magian. Generally, beings are classified as humans and demi-humans. Long ago, there were demons too. Magian and demi-humans are similar, but Magians serve the demon lord. I can manage a Demas because I'm a Magian. Right now, humans are using the Demas for personal gain, but Demas were originally created to destroy the world. Everyone is shocked. Marius says, what matters is that you now know, and I'm sure a powerful Magian manages that Demas. Rod asks, you don't mind facing someone of your own kind? And he replies, I don't like them or their ways. I won't defeat them as a Magian. I'll defeat them as Marius. Rod says, I consider you a friend, so you're definitely with us? And Neen and Luna say, we don't mind having you with us. Lily says to Rod, we need to discuss how to deal with the monsters we're sure are on the 50th floor, and Lilia looks at her surprised as she explains. They continue on, defeating monsters until they reach the 50th floor. A skeletal dragon appears. Rod provokes it and remembers Lily's plan. Rod will attack first, and will stay outside the monster's attack range. My sister and Marius will attack from outside the range. Since it's a skeleton monster, it's best to use destructive attacks instead of slashes, and we'll use fire magic mainly. The monster attacks Rod, and he blocks it. The dragon releases a rain of bones, and Rod protects himself with the shield while Lily heals him. Rod tries to draw its attention, but the monster surprises him with a fast strike that he blocks. Marius and Lilia attack it. Suddenly, the dragon goes berserk and fires bone projectiles that hit Marius and Lilia. Lilia says, I think it's just a scratch, but it's poisoned. Rod tells Neen, heal her, I'll distract the enemy. Rod attacks it, and Lily casts fire magic. Rod provokes it and thinks, after all these attacks, it's ignoring my taunt and attacking randomly. He blocks the dragon's poison breath, but the shield becomes heavy due to the residue. He says, someone hit the shield with water magic, and the dragon pushes Rod. Neen casts water on the shield, cleaning it, and it becomes light again. She uses the healing zone skill. The dragon releases poison and charges fire. Lily says, it's about to shoot fire. Move away fast. Rod runs at it and redirects the attack away from them. He provokes the dragon again, which strikes him, and he gathers a lot of damage points. He enters Nin's healing zone. Marius attacks the dragon, then Lilia, and Luna and Lily support with fire magic from the rear. Rod provokes it again, gathers more damage, and uses life conversion to destroy the dragon. Nin says, don't tell me you're planning to continue, and he replies, that's enough for today. We'll continue tomorrow. The next day, Rod asks Lilia, what did you want to talk about? She says, about Lily. Her performance yesterday was amazing. He says, you're right. She surprised me, and I think she can do even more. She replies, she's always been able to do anything as long as she stays calm, and asks, what do you think about change? Does it scare you? He replies, I guess. I don't like change, except for what's been happening in Avanchia lately. Sometimes I feel like things would be better if nothing changed, and I'm sure many townspeople feel the same way, but I'm happy that something's changed, like how Avanchia became so lively. I think the best option is to find a way to enjoy change. She responds, I thought things would be better if they didn't change, and I still think that sometimes. Honestly, I'm weaker than Lily and I want to support her, but I'm also sad seeing her drift away from me. Rod thinks to himself, Lilia's inability to let go of her sister might be a bigger problem than Lily's desire to change, and says to her, some things do change, but Lily and Lilia won't. I think you'll always understand each other and stay together. She says, thank you, that's what I wanted to hear. They return to the Demus, and Lily says, the 51st floor is the furthest point the two great guilds reached, so we don't have enough data about it, but because of the thick fog in the Demus, we'll have to use something other than detection magic to find the monsters. Rod says, you'll be in charge of detection, and Marius and I will scout as much as we can. Lily teleports them, and they find thick fog. Lily says, my detection spell isn't working, and Rod tells Luna, try clearing the fog with wind magic, but it fails. Marius tells them, this fog is made with mana, so wind won't clear it, but since monsters also possess mana, we can focus on that. Rod tries sensing the surroundings with mana and feels someone near them. He provokes them, and a water spell is cast at him, revealing mud monsters. Lily says, those must be Sahajin. Luna blows them away with wind magic. Rod senses more monsters and tells them, run northwest. He provokes the monsters, and a giant fish Sahajin attacks him. Two more appear behind Rod, and he blocks their strike with his sword. One jumps on him, but Marius saves him quickly. The others learn to detect monster mana and manage to fight through the fog and defeat the Sahajin. They take a break between floors, and Rod says, the materials they dropped are amazing. Lilia tells him, that's the highest quality available, and adds, because of our talk, I didn't have any trouble looking at Lily today, so thank you. They move to the next floor. Rod says, no fog here, but the space is huge. Neen replies, it feels like a boss chamber. Marius senses something approaching, and a magic circle appears on the ground. A skeleton emerges with 3 orbs, blue, red, and yellow, floating like crystals. Rod activates Sacrifice Shield and thinks, what's this pressure? None of the monsters we've faced compare to it. He charges and uses Taunt. The yellow orb moves and creates a barrier that prevents Rod from attacking. The red orb fires flames, and Rod blocks them. The skeleton slashes with a sword, and Rod blocks it. He notices it's faster now, which is because of the blue orb. Rod is unsure what to do and decides to stick with the plan. He provokes the skeleton, and Lilia and Marius attack, but the yellow orb protects it. Marius says, the crystal can only create a barrier around itself. Rod attacks the skeleton and says, keep up the pressure. The skeleton's eyes glow and blind everyone. Lilia begins trembling strangely and suddenly attacks Marius, screaming at him, stop hurting Lily. She remembers when she was young and her father hit Lily while she tried to protect her. She looks at Lily and thinks, someone help us. She gets more aggressive toward Marius, yelling, don't hurt Lily. Rod tells Neen, heal her, but she says, wait, the others are affected by the status effect. I'll heal Lily and Luna first. Rod thinks, Marius, Neen, and I are immune to status effects. If we were all affected, the party would have been wiped out. The skeleton lunges at Rod, so he uses life conversion and knocks the yellow orb away. He asks Marius, can you control the skeleton? Marius says, I'll try. That'd be easier for me. Rod provokes Lilia to get her off Marius. She attacks him with dual swords, but he blocks with his shield and pins her to the ground. He realizes from her words that she's suffering from traumatic memories. He tells her, no one here will hurt you. Don't worry. You're both strong now. Lilia cries, and Rod appears in her memories, reaching out and saying, we're all here for you. No matter what happens, I'll protect you. She returns to herself and feels guilty. Rod reassures her, saying, there are many people here who'll help you. Don't be afraid. He tells Marius, come back so we can heal you. Marius says, we can't fight it unless we destroy the yellow orb. The skeleton charges at Rod with fire to stop him from attacking. Rod tells Neen, I need you, so she casts water magic on him to shield him from the fire. Rod charges the skeleton, but the yellow orb blocks him. He notices that the water droplets on him pass through the barrier and says, it probably can't block physical and magic attacks at the same time. Lilia says, let's try, and casts fire magic while Rod runs at it. The orb blocks Rod, and the fire hits it. Lily, Neen, and Luna all cast magic at once, and the yellow orb blocks them. Rod charges, and Marius attacks too. Then Lilia attacks. The monster uses the blinding flash again, but Lilia closes her eyes, so it doesn't affect her. Neen says, my spell nullifies the status effect. Luna uses wind, Neen water, and Lily fire. Rod runs at it, and Neen says, you'll be harmed by our magic, but he replies, I'll use life conversion and attack. He slams the skeleton away, and they think it's over, but it gets up and duplicates itself. Rod tells Lilia and Marius, defeat one of them. Marius says, says, but we don't know which one is real. Luna casts slime and says, that one's real. They charge in, and the yellow orb protects it. Lily and Neen cast fire and water together and destroy it. Rod notices the skeleton's movements becoming strange, so he attacks. The barrier cracks, and he tells Lilia and Marius, attack! They press together, the barrier breaks, the monster turns to ash, and its magic stone appears. Lily says, I can't find the magic circle, and Rod says, impossible. Does that mean this is the ground floor? He asks Marius, what do you think? Marius replies, I don't know what the Demas Guardian is thinking. Maybe that skeleton was his strongest weapon, and now he's scared of us because we beat it. Rod asks, so he sealed off the next level? Marius says, I feel this guardian is unique. Rod says, then this is the end of our path. We've achieved a lot, so let's go back. Suddenly, a small girl appears behind him and says, you're leaving. Then she bites his neck with fangs. She pulls back, and Rod thinks, what is this little girl with this strange aura? For magic circles appear, and skeletons come out of them. Rod thinks, we can't take on 4 skeletons at once. The girl says, thinking of erasing them, and with one attack from her fan, she destroys them all. Marius says, I didn't expect the Demon Queen to be here, and she gets angry and tells him, shut up, you failed Demon King. Rod blocks her strike and says, Marius is my friend, and I won't let you attack him. She says, I see, the failure allied with humans. Marius replies, it's not like that, I hate Demon Kings. She tells him, stay out of my way. You know you don't stand a chance against us. Rod answers, maybe he can't beat you alone, but you're not facing him alone right now. She says in surprise, what do you mean? Your power still doesn't compare to a Demon King's. Rod says, one person alone might not be strong or able to control a Demas. That's why we form parties. She replies, then let's see what you can do against the guardian of Deuskel, Amon Sloth. Luna says, her mana is immense, and Rod charges her, activates Sacrifice Shield, and she blasts him with a tornado. He uses Taunt, and she fires wind bullets that push him back. Marius jumps at her with a sword, but she stops him with her fan. Lilia leaps at her, and Amon kicks her. Luna and Lily launch fire spells at her, but Amon creates a whirlwind that redirects their attacks. Amon says, you won't reach me with those attacks. Rod jumps at her, and she dodges, so Neen knocks her down with a spell. Lilia runs toward her, and Amon kicks her. Marius jumps at her, but she blocks his sword with her fan and pushes him back with one finger. Rod provokes her and charges, but she stops him with wind. Lily attacks from behind with fire, and Amon barely blocks it. Rod uses a flash magic stone, and Lilia and Marius slash her. Amon creates a storm and transforms, saying, I underestimated you. Rod tells Neen, heal us. When the storm fades, Amon has transformed into a massive wolf. Rod asks Marius, can you also transform into a monster? Marius says, of course, if you don't mind me attacking both ally and enemy. Amon slashes at Rod with her claws, and he blocks it, thinking, how can I stand up to this enormous beast? Lilia and Marius wound her side. Marius says, we barely scratched her. Her fur is as tough as armor. Rod tries to lure her away from them. Luna and Lily bombard her with fireballs, but they have no effect. Amon attacks Rod, and he thinks, her attacks are getting stronger. I need rest. Marius slashes her arm. Amon roars, and Neen casts a spell to remove status effects. Amon slashes at Rod again, but Marius pushes her away. Lilia slashes her, and as Amon tries to run, Lilia stabs her in the back to stop her. Rod provokes her again, and she charges at him. He thinks, her attacks are getting slower. Amon surrounds herself with wind, and Marius attacks but gets thrown back. Neen says, that's a barrier that cuts anything near it. Rod says, that stone on her forehead wasn't glowing. If we destroy that, we might beat her. Lily tells Neen, use a dispel spell. Rod says, let's buy time, and they keep Amon busy while Neen prepares the spell. Nin's spell cancels Amon's wind barrier. Amon tries to flee, but Luna blocks her. Lilia and Marius slash her hands. Rod converts 30,000 damage points into an attack that sends Amon flying. She fires cutting winds that deplete Rod's absorption shield. He thinks, if I lose my shield and get hit, I'll die. Suddenly the tornado vanishes, and he sees Marius and Lilia on the ground, unable to move. Rod says, Luna and Neen, heal them quickly. If she attacks again, they'll die. Neen asks, and your shield? He replies, I can still use my skills without it. I'm the only one who can stop her. He charges Amon, thinking, I selfishly insisted we come here and dragged them with me. I have to fix this. He takes Amon's claws head on, thinking, I'm hurting because I lost my shield. Amon can't use wind magic anymore, and Rod is too tired to attack. Lily says, I'll fuse with my sister and fight. Rod says, but she interrupts, you told me you'd support me. I can still fight. He says, okay, I'll keep blocking. And Luna and Neen say, we're with you. Amon attacks Rod with fast strikes, and he tries to buy time. Amon hits his stomach, and Neen heals him. Lilia attacks Amon, who dodges her strikes and counters. Rod blocks the hit and thinks, Lily is as fast as Lilia when she's leading, but her moves are easy to read. Lily says, sorry, I still don't know how to use this body. He says, fight the way you always do. Lilia's not conscious now, so don't worry. Fight your way. I'll buy time until you're ready. He thinks, we don't really have time, but they're trying and so must I. Amon hits him hard and sends him flying. He thinks, in this state, I can't buy time. I feel like I could black out any second. He feels weak and thinks, no, now I'm making excuses. No matter what, I must protect my friends. He looks at Marius and sees he used his mana as a shield. Rod tries it as Amon attacks and succeeds. He thinks, my body moves like I have a shield again, and the pain in my arm lessened. Amon attacks again, and Rod parries her claws. Lily drops on her with a sword imbued with water and fire magic. She adds more elements to the sword and lands the final blow. Amon reverts to her humanoid form and collapses. Rod asks, are you still planning to continue? She replies, no, I didn't think you'd defeat me. He says, I'm looking for magic stones that grant wishes. Do you know them? She gives him her stone and asks, aren't you going to kill me? He says, you called yourself a demon queen. Does that mean there are others? She replies, yes, but I don't know how many. He asks, and what's their goal? She says, the demon kings are playing a game to see if they can destroy this world. He asks, and do you oppose humans because you're a demon queen, or do you just want to fight strong opponents? She says, I think you have something to say. He says, yeah, can you help me? If the demon kings are going to keep fighting, I want allies to help me. She asks, then why don't you bind me with a slave contract and force me to help you? He says, I don't want to force anyone to do anything. That's why I'm asking. She laughs and says, fine, I'll help. That night at the guild celebration, Rod tells the adventurers, our guild has taken control of Deuskel, and this is a map of the 51st floor. In exchange for the map and information, we ask for an alliance with the two great guilds. They agree. The next day, they return to Avanchia. Manisha uses the magic stone and says to Rod, my body feels lighter, and thanks Amon. The next day, Manisha gives Rod the villagers' requests since he officially became the leader of the guild. Neen rushes into Rod and tells him, come quickly. He goes with her and she says, we found this girl on the ground, and he finds that she's an Anisian like Luna. The girl wakes up and says, help me. My friends are fighting in the forest. Rod tells Luna, stay here and heal her. Rod and Neen go and find a group of Anisions fighting each other. Neen says, it looks like one side is being forced to fight, and the ones resisting have emotions like the girl we found. Rod interferes and tries to stop them, but they ignore him and attack. He says to the leader of the conscious ones, one of you came to our town and asked for help. She ignores him and keeps fighting. One of the Anisions attacks her, and Rod blocks the strike. He asks her, are you one of the friends she talked about? She replies, yes. He asks, who are those fighting you? She says, Anisian warriors from Bronkels, which is the same town Luna came from, meaning they are illegal Anisians. Rod tells Neen, heal them. He asks the leader, you called them warriors. Does that mean they don't have emotions or awareness like you? She answers, no, their only goal is to carry out orders and kill us for escaping. Amon appears behind Rod and says, they're no different from puppets. Rod attacks them and breaks their magic stones, causing them to vanish. He tells the Anisians, your friend is with me in a place like home, and asks, will you come with us? He thinks, there's worry on their faces. They've clearly gone through harsh experiences and must hate humans. The leader replies, we don't like humans, but we have nowhere else to go. He takes them to the guild house and feeds them. Neen tells him, we need to report their presence to the magistrate before the news reaches the country's higher officials. Otherwise, we won't be able to protect them. The girl they found says, thanks for saving us. My name is Fur. She asks Rod, are you going to meet your town's leader? He replies, yes. She says, in that case, can I come with you? We'll simplify things if one of us talks to him, and he'll definitely want to know what's happening in Bronkels. He takes her to the magistrate, who says, I understand the situation. I've confirmed that the country really was creating Anisions. Rod asks, you knew? He replies, I'd heard rumors, and it seems they treat Anisions cruelly. Rod asks, can the town provide them protection? They have nowhere to go, and more importantly, Anisions can offer a labor force we need. He asks in surprise, you want the Anisions to work? Rod says, yes, they're conscious like her and can think and act for themselves. The magistrate replies, you're right. I see that but in her, they're no different from humans. Fur is happy hearing that. He tells her a wide variety of Anisions are being made, from leaders who can think like you to warriors, and asks, do you have any idea why Anision tech evolved so strangely? She says, the reason is a demon king named Greed who appeared in Broncos 20 years ago, and Anision tech improved noticeably since then. Anisions like us are being produced on a large scale. The magistrate says, I'll report what you said to the country, and Avanchia will provide protection. On the way home, Rod tells her, there was a girl fighting Anisions in the forest. She replies, you mean Samimina? She's really strong for a commander, and I think she'll be a powerful addition to the battle. She's a bit arrogant but cares about others and has a kind heart. He says, I noticed that. She says, we were treated harshly, so most of us hate humans, but you saved us. And after coming here, we saw that some humans are kind to Anisions. I think things won't go smoothly at first, but I believe they'll understand eventually. They reach home, and Rod asks the Anisions, what can you do so I can find you work? Fur replies, we made clothes and weapons, helped construct essential buildings, and even built entire towns. Rod hears some of them saying, no, they'll treat us harshly again. They'll whip us. We don't want to work for humans. Rod thinks, they've worked under awful conditions until now. I should have eased their worries first. He tells them, I mean, you'll work under fair conditions. For example, you'll work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and rest. They're all shocked and say, that's short, and we'll rest too? We can't believe it. Rod says, the hours aren't final. Anyway, thank you. Samimina is surprised. Rod asks her, what is it? She says, no one thanks Anisions in our homeland, so I was surprised. Later, he goes to Manicia and says, give them the villagers' requests to carry out. Neen says to Rod, don't you notice that Luna is acting strangely? She seems really interested in the Anisions. At sunset, Rod goes to the field to find Luna and asks, are you okay? You've spent most of your time with the Anisions since they arrived, and I heard you asked about their time in Broncos. She replies, actually, I consider myself lucky that you saved me. He asks, did you tell them you're Anision? She says, no. If I told anyone, it might cause trouble someday. When humans aren't afraid of Anisions anymore, I'll tell them the truth, and I'll make sure they're all happy. He says, I'm sure you will. On his way home, he meets Amon and asks her, do you know Greed? I heard he's the one who taught Broncos how to make Anisions. She replies, he's always doing research, so I wouldn't be surprised if he knows about Anision tech. Rod says, they're still producing Anisions in large numbers, and asks, do you know why? Are they planning an invasion? She says, I doubt it. I think he's just killing time. Demon kings live indefinitely, and Greed was always trying to create absolute power, and the Anision research was one way to achieve that. Rod says, I heard illegal Anisions are very close to that kind of power. She asks, are you thinking that because you're also close to absolute power? He says, what do you mean? She replies, the power you possess is something Greed failed to obtain even after years of research, enhancement through demonic mana and the absorption shield. Greed concluded that whoever has both possesses absolute power, and you used both when you fought me. Rod says, I understand he's after power, but what does that have to do with making Anisions? She replies, probably to experiment on them. Rod thinks about all the suffering they went through for that and gets very angry. He asks, is he in a Demas? She asks, are you planning to go defeat him? She says, for the record, he's strong. You might not beat him even at full power, and your power might become a problem because the raw material that forms mana is produced from monsters, and if you use it too much, you'll turn into a monster. He asks, so I should avoid using it? She says, control it. Those who fail to control their mana turn into monsters, but if you use it right, you could become a demon king. He says, I'm not interested in becoming a demon king. She leaves him and walks away. He continues on his way and hears a voice say, destroy him. The Anisions live in Avanchia for weeks and help with construction work, finishing the public baths that had been requested many times by Rod. People are still worried about the Anisions' presence, yet the Anisions work hard and keep trying. At the same time, Rod is training with mana in Demas Avanchia and thinks to himself, there's a chance that Greed will try to kill me to gain absolute power, and I have to be ready for that. He enters the Demas control room and finds Neen with a small dragon named Byvern. Marius tells her, that's a monster worth 70,000 points, and you obtained it. Lily says, and I got a fairy named Lover. They tell Rod, thanks for letting us use your points. Lily says, being the Demas manager is amazing. Look how much monsters love you. Later, Rod goes to try the new public baths, and as he comes out, a townsman asks him, is there something dangerous inside? And the adventurer adventurers exiting look happy. Samamina tells the man, "You're welcome anytime. We hope you'll visit again soon." The man is reassured and says, "Definitely," and more people gather and trust the Anisions, saying, "We'll give it a try." A few days later, the people thank the Anisions for building the baths and begin to get along with them, with the fear gradually disappearing. One of the knights runs up to Rod and tells him, "A large army of goblins is approaching Avanchia." Rod gathers the adventurers in the town and says, "There's an army of 150 monsters headed here, but don't worry, we're stronger than them, and any adventurer who joins the battle will get a reward for each monster defeated." Everyone gets excited to join. Marius and Amon enter, and Amon tells him, "A new Demus is forming in the region, and it's very powerful." He asks, "Is it related to the horde of monsters?" She replies, "I think they're copying monsters inside the Demus and sending them to this world." Samamina enters and says, "We'll help you. We'll be the sword and shield of the town." Byvern and Lover also arrive, and Rod says, "I've got a mission for you." They see the monsters approaching, and the adventurers and knights prepare for battle. When they see how many there are, they panic, saying, "There are more than 300 of them." Rod calms them and says, "Don't be afraid. The creatures in front of us are just goblins." They attack and find them easy to defeat, so they gain courage. Suddenly, spellcasting goblins appear, so Marius and Lilialia step in. Rod runs at the monsters and provokes them while Marius and Lilialia slash them. Rod uses mana to see behind him and blocks attacks skillfully. Marius and Lilialia finish them off, and the adventurers and knights fight with full strength. Rod thinks, all the monsters disappeared. That means they really came from a Demus. Then an enormous number of monsters appears again, this time with ogres among them. Monsters from Demus Avanchia also appear, and the adventurers get scared, but the monsters dodge them and attack the enemy. They're shocked to see the monsters fighting alongside them. Rod remembers telling Byvern and Lover, "Create the largest number of Demus Avanchia monster copies and bring them to the battlefield." Rod tells the adventurers, "Don't worry, these monsters are under my control, and I'll fight with them, so support me." He runs at the enemy and provokes them, while the Demus monsters protect his back. The battle ends, and Amon tells Rod, "That new Demus belongs to Demon King Greed. I can feel his mana nearby." Rod replies, "Then we need to take control of that Demus as soon as possible." Amon asks, "What will you do after defeating Greed? Are you going to recruit him like you did with me?" Rod says, "I can't forgive him for what he did, and the Anisions wouldn't accept it." She asks, "So you'll kill him?" He says, "There are many things about Bronkles only he knows, so I'd rather capture him." She reveals magical shackles and says, "These cuffs suppress a Demon King's abilities. They'll be useful for you." Marius asks, "Are we going now?" Rod replies, "No, you're staying here." Marius gets upset and asks, "Why?" Rod says, "Greed will keep sending monsters at us, and you have a good relationship with the adventurers. They trust you as the vice leader of the guild, and you're the only one I can trust to lead the battlefield." Marius says, "Got it," and Amon says, "You can count on us." Rod takes the rest of the party and Samamina and heads to the Demus, where they find the place empty. Lily casts a detection spell and says, "There's nothing around us." Rod says, "Then let's go to the next floor." Lily says, "Unfortunately, I didn't find any magic circle in the area." Suddenly, Rod senses immense mana, and a magic gate appears. A man steps out and says, "My name is Greed." Rod tells him, "Shut down your Demus and surrender now." Greed asks, "And why would I do that?" Rod replies, "We dealt with the monsters you sent, so you must have seen our strength." Greed opens a screen showing the number of monsters attacking Avanchia. Rod says, "It's impossible to invade Avanchia with your forces." Greed says, "I have unlimited points and can use them to summon monsters. I think it's only a matter of time." He then asks, "Those two girls with you, they're Anisions, right?" Lily, Lilia, and Neen are shocked. Lona responds, "Yes," and Greed says, "You've grown far more than my research predicted. Who knew living in the outside world would affect Anisions like this?" He asks, "How about coming back to me?" Lona says, "No, Rod is my leader." Neen asks Rod and Lona, "Why didn't you tell us?" Rod says, "I'm sorry," and Lona apologizes too, but they interrupt her, saying, "Explain later," and smile at her. Greed transforms into his demon form, his color darkens, and wings emerge. He punches Rod, who barely blocks it, thinking, "That hit was really heavy. I'll enhance my whole body with mana." Greed pushes him away. Lilia attacks, but he dodges and Samamina jumps at him. He grabs her sword and punches her. She gets up and asks Rod, "Did you absorb the damage I just took?" He says, "Yes." She replies, "That's unnecessary. I live to protect the Anisions." He asks her, "Are you ready to die to defeat Greed?" She says, "Yes." He responds, "Then don't fight. I don't want anyone to die." She says, "I'm an Anision. My life has no value." He tells her, "Greed used you as tools, and you want me to be like the person you hate? If If not, then don't waste your life fighting. Got it. Greed interrupts with an attack. Neen and Lona make a barrier to protect them. Rod provokes him and Greed charges. Rod blocks and kicks him. Samimina jumps at him. Greed charges his hand with magic, but Lona disables it. Lilia and Samimina hit him, and Rod restrains him and locks the cuffs on him. Greed says, I feel extremely weak. Meanwhile, the adventurers defend the town and fight the monsters. Marius unleashes a powerful strike, wiping out many. Amon creates a wind blast that explodes, killing a large number. Back with Rod, he sees a magic stone on Greed's chest, and suddenly a gate opens behind them. A powerful being emerges and strikes Rod, who barely blocks it. The being is Greed. Rod asks, are you the real one? He replies, since this one is copied from my memories and abilities, we could say Anisions are real too, but this copy is much weaker. He transforms into demon form and fires a blast that sends Rod flying. Rod enhances his fist with mana and charges, but Greed disappears and appears behind him, kicking him. Neen fires energy shots from above. Lily and Lily emerge, and Lilialia charges at Greed quickly. He easily dodges her strikes. She casts wind magic, and Samimina attacks, but he evades again and transforms. He launches a massive punch at Rod, severely draining his absorption shield. Lilialia distracts Greed while Neen heals Rod. Rod charges and provokes him. Lilialia strikes him. He says, it's useless, and unleashes a cyclone that cancels their merge. Rod converts 20,000 damage points into his sword using life conversion and blasts Greed. Another Greed appears. Rod thinks, Lily and Lilia are out of the fight now, what should I do? Greed appears instantly in front of Rod and knocks him away. Rod stands up and thinks, I'm not strong or fast enough to beat him with my mana boost. I need to focus all my mana into my body. He attacks Greed, but it doesn't hurt him. Greed kicks Rod. Rod gets up and tries to use life conversion again, but Greed strikes first with a heavy punch, shattering Rod's absorption shield and making him bleed. Rod thinks, I can't move from the pain, and says, run, then loses consciousness. He wakes up to see his whole team bleeding and unconscious. Lona barely stands and runs at Greed, who knees her in the stomach and chokes her. Rod tries to force himself to move and pours all his mana into his body until a red aura appears around him. He punches Greed and sends him flying. Greed gets up and tries to kick Rod, but Rod dodges skillfully. He hears a voice in his head, destroy him. Rod grabs Greed's arm and slams him into the ground, then punches him hard. Neen tries to stop him, calling his name. He thinks, who? But tells himself, whatever, I must destroy him. Neen grabs his hand and slaps his face. He regains consciousness, and she says, I hit you with magic. Rod thinks, I feel drained by my mana, and suddenly the red aura returns. He remembers Amon saying, you must control it. Anyone who fails to control their mana becomes a monster. He realizes the voice he kept hearing was his own all along. He regains control over his mana and returns to normal. Greed opens several screens showing the battle and tells him, the place you're protecting will be destroyed soon. Rod tells Neen, use healing magic on me continuously no matter what. He thinks of all the adventurers giving their all and says to Greed, thank you, the adventurers, the guards, the Anisions, Marius, Amon, my skill sensed them all as if they were here. He activates Shield of Sacrifice, takes all their absorption shields, and his points rise. He tells Greed, I'm the strongest guardian in the world, then uses life conversion and blasts Greed out of the Demus. At sunset, Rod returns to his sister, and the entire town cheers and celebrates him. They live happily ever after.